Welcome back. And we're moving into our second conversation for today. Obviously, a very important conversation has been started this week in looking at gender-based violence. And we wanted to be able to talk about some of the services that are available in Belize and what the actual situation is in the country. So we have invited at this time representatives of the Women's Department. We have the director with us, Anna Williams. And we have Michelle Irving, who is the Women's Development Officer in Stank Creek. Good morning and welcome.
Morning.
And thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
We're actually getting ready to move into Women's Month, so it's probably an even better time to have this conversation before. But I really need to start off with just having an understanding as to how we assess where we are when it comes to gender-based violence in the country. What are our markers for progress or just how bad the situation is?
I think one of the things that we have done through the National Gender-Based Violence Committee was to have an action plan. And that action plan have indicators, what needs to be done or what level of progress we're making. So working off that action plan, that's the way we follow what the indicators, and that would tell us how well we're going with where we need to go. Also through the UN Trust Fund, about 2 years ago I think it was, that a lot of work went into that, to ensuring that we have a level of ability to monitor and evaluate where we are and where we need to go. So from the Women's Department standpoint, that's the way we try to ensure, along with the stakeholders, because the National Gender-Based Violence Committee is comprised of all the key players as it relates to NGOs, the police, other line ministries that work on the same issue.
What is the role of that committee?
The role of the committee, I work with the committee locally, and then there is the national committee. And so I'm sure Ms. Anna could elaborate a bit on the national committee, but at the local level, we help to, one, spread awareness about the issue as it relates to gender-based violence, the different forms of gender-based violence there is. Have, like for example, on the 16 Days of Activism, Women's Month coming up, galvanizing the community in understanding what these issues are, what the services are, how they can access these services, and support people who are actually going through the issues of GBV, as we call it, gender-based violence. And on the local level, the committee is also comprised of key players that mirrors the national committee, meaning the police officers, the health personnel, NGOs such as BFLA, for example. And so in the magistrate or from the magistrate court representative, so that then we can better able to know what is happening on the ground, what are some of the gaps, and how we could better serve the persons who are actually in need of the service.
I want to ask a question. I'm significantly outnumbered on this set.
That's okay.
But the conversation is about gender-based violence. But it's coming from the Women's Department. We deal with Women's Month. Is the focus in terms of for domestic violence solely and only from the benefit of the woman? Because I have a sensitive issue, which is there are lots of same-sex relationships where there's violence. So how does somebody who is in a male-male abusive relationship get assistance when probably looking on this show is thinking, but this is all for lady where get beat up?
I think that's a misnomer, but probably the way you put it, those kind of images or implications are there. And that's why the term gender-based violence is so important, because gender connotates, the power relations, and so it doesn't say, we're not focusing on violence against women, which could be a particular form of gender-based violence. Yeah. But gender-based violence in its total also include men who would not maybe in same-sex relationship, but the power relations, whatever is happening there, but also men who are in heterosexual relationships. So those services are on the ground. There is no discrimination as it relates to receiving from the Ministry of Human Development, receiving persons. We deal with people and their situation. And so whosoever comes into that office, we assess the situation. We see where we can best support. We see in places there might be some issues with maybe the way the law is written, but how to best get around that. Maybe, for example, in same-sex relationship, there may be some issues there. But the point is that from our end, we ensure that that support is there. That ongoing training is there as it relates to our staff and how we peer-to-peer even, and how we address those issues.
What are the numbers for domestic violence against males?
I don't have the numbers now, but I can tell you in my local area what I see. For example, the numbers would mostly reflect, and I think this reflects nationally, that the reported cases is like 95% for women and like 5% for men. So if you take 100, you would get 95 women and 5 men.
Just to add a little bit to Michelle, even though the department is formerly known as a women's department, what we've done is there are 2 specific units within the department. So there's a family support unit, and then there's a gender unit. So as Michelle rightly said, that even though it's called women's department, there's a gender unit that looks at both genders. So we do have males coming in at time, but we know majority of the cases being reported to us are women.
Yeah.
Me and men's department too, though.
Well, that's why they have men to start.
Yeah, and that's a different discussion.
I think your point is valid. We always hear that. In fact, I'm sure somebody's watching the conversation right now saying, when are they going to start the women's department? The women's movement was started by women. If there needs to be a men's department, there are many great exemplary men in this country who can get together and start one as well. But I just wanted to, and I appreciate what you're saying, because I think the purpose as to why we say gender-based violence is really to encapsulate many different issues. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about a man beating a woman beating a man, a same-sex, a violence within a relationship, sexual violence, emotional violence, and even financial violence. And that's a lot.
It's a lot.
And we don't always dissect how these issues are connected, or sometimes become like a precursor to even more advanced forms of violence.
Yes, especially, for example, we were just talking in the room waiting, and we're not so apt of catching on to especially psychological violence, and the issue of power and control, the issue of control, and how that is a form of violence. But many people who are in those type of relationship would quickly say, well, I am not being beaten. Mm-hmm. So it's just physical violence that seem to be accepted as violence. So we need to also continue to spread the message that your controlling your finances is a form of violence.
It's a huge one.
Psychological control is an intimidation and threats is a huge part of violence. But a lot of times that is not reported as such. Yeah. And so sometimes the clear violence, or the most type of violence that we see, is physical violence. But when someone come in with physical violence, then you need to then investigate a little bit further as an officer, and says, sometimes you even have to give examples to say, like this or like that. Is this happening to you? Is that happening to you? So that then you could make an assessment, and all of that we have to do as women's development officers or social practitioners, in the fields, going out there or in our office and ensuring, so we could ensure that that person is referred to the necessary agency or the necessary interventions that is needed for that person. Yeah. And so we work a lot closely with, for example, the PNP, the psychiatric nurses. There is still a lot of stigma sometimes attached to to the result of a lot of psychological abuse or emotional abuse, which a lot of times causes mental health issues. And so a lot of people, you know, they would tell you, I feel like I'm getting crazy. I don't feel like myself. I can't function. And so then you would make that referral, but sometimes it's very difficult for people to uptake that, because we also have to do some awareness about mental health and, you know, the needs we have as human beings for good mental health.
Yeah.
So those are some of the services that we continue to do on a daily basis. That's there.
You know, this issue is so complex, and I feel that one of the things we always hear is that there are no particular types of persons who will engage in a violent relationship of any form, psychological, emotional, financial. You know, you can be very wealthy, you can be very poor, you can be Hispanic, you can be black, you can be Mayan, you can be Garifuna, any relationship. And in fact, this isn't a problem unique to Belize, but across the world. I always hear people ask the question, why didn't she leave? Why did she put up with that? I want to flip the question today. You worked with the Batterers program. What is it about the perpetrators that make them feel it's okay to diminish somebody, whether psychologically or removing even their physical capacity sometimes when they harm them?
One of the things I have to say for the Batterers Intervention Program that was managed by the Women's Department, it's being reconstructed right now. I think Ms. Anna could look at that again. But I was a trained facilitator, and in the training, for example, because this was a regional program, and one of the main underlining issues in the training was the gender relationships, the issues of higher and subordinate and inequality. So we focused on how that stemmed from unequal power relationship, all right? And so you feel that somehow you have the right, the power, and the ability to diminish someone's self-worth, to ensure that they don't feel as good as, you know, themselves. And a lot of times, sometimes it is coming from a place where the person themselves are not feeling as adequate as they need to feel, or from socialization in violence and acceptance of violence.
So they saw it at home.
So or they see it in their community, or this is the way how we solve problems, you know. So if we know that we solve problem by the use of violence and that will correct the problem, then a lot of times if you have a problem in your relationship, you will use that kind of threat, intimidation. I mean, at school, if you want to solve the problem of a child not doing the homework, you would usually diminish or not listening, or you would use hitting or psychological violence. So I think trying to then using the program to retrain the perpetrator and this program was just for men who perpetrate physical violence. I think it was. So there is a specific, there's a specific.
And it was court mandated.
Court mandated, yes.
I want to speak in very practical terms. I wish you could address the viewers in very practical terms. If I am a woman at home and I'm looking at this and I know, okay, well, I just, was beaten last night, raped last night, and I want to leave, to extend my next question. But I'm looking and I'm saying, you guys can't help me. What services, what practical services do you offer? And I have a follow-up question after that.
Okay. Ms. Anna will talk from one level, and I'll talk about what happens on the ground. So
so what the ministry has done, we've taken a step up to add what we call a family support component to the department. So if a woman comes in reporting domestic violence, there's an officer that works with that woman in terms of the legal aspect, accessing the court if you want to take out a protection order, getting occupational order, etc. And
actually goes to court with you as well?
Yeah. So the officer works like an advocate for that person. And then when we're past that legal system, if that person then is a matter of coming out of the home, what the department has looked at is also looking at strengthening the case management component. So now we're looking at working with women sort of in a holistic way. So we understand that there are legal issues. We understand that there are mental health issues. So looking at referral services for counseling, mental health issues, we understand that most of the time some of these women are in this situation, and what stops them from coming out is the whole independence and economic.
They have no money.
Exactly.
They have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
Nowhere to go. So working with that, helping them along that line of empowering them as a woman to give them the strength, looking at the strengths to come out of the relationship, and also empowering them economically to come out of the relationship. So there's a job readiness program within the department that we work with women, setting them through whether it's skills training that we have to do, or whether it's entrepreneurship, or helping them with direct employment if some of them have the skills already. So we're working with that as well. And then also, as I said, having the officer there as a mentor per se, and helping them through that, or also accessing other family members, friends that may be mentors to them as they go through, because we know it's not an easy process.
Yeah.
Taking that first step is a big step, just
Yeah.
to say, I want to come out.
Yeah.
So then how do we support that woman mentally? How do we support that woman physically, emotionally, financially as well to come out? So there are those services that we're working with women now.
Let me just push a bit further with that, because I think I hear that you have supplementary programs, and that is fantastic. They will need, if I need to become financially independent, I'll need skills, I'll need opportunities, I'll definitely need counseling to build up my self-confidence and self-worth, and to help my children as well overcome.
Yes.
But realistically, in this world, an office is open within office hours. I may get beaten close to death at midnight. And I need to leave. And I need to leave now, because when my husband went for the gun, and when he comes back, it's death.
Yeah. Well,
Where do I go? Who do I call?
Okay.
How do I get out without him finding me and killing me, or hurting me, or dragging me back home?
Right. In that scenario that's really, you have to call the police.
Yeah.
At that time, you have to call the police,
Yeah.
because he's going for a gun. He has a gun. He has access to a weapon. You understand me? So we would then say, hey, anybody, you call the police at that time, because don't call Miss Michelle, because I don't have a gun, right? But after you call the police would then know that they will refer that person. They are safe. They are they're protected in that environment. And then we would come in after that. Okay, this is what happened last night, or they would call us. And sometimes we have to say, yes, our office is open from 8 in the morning to 5 in the evening, but we do not, speaking as an officer on the ground, your working hours are basically when you are needed.
Yeah.
We're on call. Also, formally and informally, I would give out, I say, I'm on Facebook, this is my phone number. You receive text messages, you receive messages via Facebook, people wanting to know, what do I do? Okay, stay low. Okay, call the police. Okay, we'll see you, in the morning. We also support women who need to go to shelters. All right, and so that that's a safety issue. They're threatened. They need to hide. So to speak, they need to go to a place where no one knows where they are, and to be able to think what they're going to do. Yeah. So those are services that we offer. The idea that you have to be aware of the different dynamics. Yeah. There is no one size fits all in a GBV, domestic violence situation. There are women who are wealthy, who really don't need a job, but they need to know that they're safe, that their children are okay. They need to be able, some people, you could make an assessment that I can't stay in a relationship, but I can save some of my own money, because most of the money is tied up in family business or something like that. I can document the issue, everything that happens, I can see how I can best ensure that once a safety assessment is done with you, we do all of that. Do you have somebody you can call? Do you have runaway money? Save up, if you need to put gas in the vehicle, if you need to hire somebody, if you need to call a taxi, so you go through all of that with the person and to try and ensure that they are as comfortable. Sometimes all you need is to be there and to give that support. Sometimes you don't need to do nothing physically, so to speak. You just need to be there. And I think that's what some of the messages I would like to say to family members, to friends, to co-worker. A lot of times, domestic violence or gender-based violence, it has a lot of judgment. And that's why
we make people feel ashamed.
Yes, and people do not come forward because of that.
Yeah.
And so, girl, why you not left him? Why you did? So there's
and that's
a lot
even
of
if they
judgment.
say it to their face behind them. They're saying, she pretend like she's happy, and
yes.
we know what.
Right. So that judgment. So we need to think about that.
Just add to what Michelle said, that the ministry does has a very good on-call system. So there are social workers on call for after 5 that can address some of those issues. And also what we're putting on the table for this year, we're also looking at a proposal for what we call gender advocates. So we know that this might work in the city or the urban areas, but what happens in rural areas? So we're looking at how do we identify volunteers and actually train volunteers, give them the capacity to be able to be advocates for some of these women in the rural areas. So if something happens in whatever village that's out of the urban area, there is somebody there that is trained to respond, that is there to train to guide that woman as to what are the steps she needs to take, what are the support services available, helping that person accessing the court system, etc., things like that.
See, I'm having a problem. I'm having a huge problem. Women, I find them, I do a lot of cases with women. I used to do a lot of family law work. I don't anymore. But women are very practical. And so they're sitting here and watching and thinking, they're talking theory. A simple thing like going to court, practically, it takes time. While my life is going on, I still have bills coming in, my children need to go to school, there's a practical turnaround time. What is there in place for these practical considerations? Who's going to afford the attorney? Who's going to deal with any little detail that I have? I'm comfortable now.
Lunch money for the kids
Lunch
tomorrow.
money for the kids. If I put a charge on him, Mr. Arthurs, and he goes to jail, who supports me? These practical things, and I'd ask you to speak specifically about practical things that a woman looking out there can look. I can actually go there and get this help, not for the short term, because I can come out of the house today, but in the long term. And also the issue of, I've tried this before. I gotten up, I left, I gone to my mom, and I don't do it, and it didn't work. I'm right back here again. Practically, what is there for me in the long term?
Right. So a woman comes in, domestic violence. Once they come out of the relationship, as I said, there's a social worker there to access the legal system. There is what we call our public assistance program. So what happens is if that woman comes out, that woman needs somewhere to stay. There is funds that we can access in terms of looking at rent assistance. We know it's not short term. We are aware of that. So there are cases and there are instances and there's an opportunity for us to do more than just short term, what we call, so that 3 months. Yeah. So we would look at renting a place for that person for 3 months and working within that 3 months with that woman. That's what we call case management and care planning. So within that 3 months, what do we want to achieve? Is it that she can be readily employed? Is it that she needs to go through training? So for example, we sent her to a housekeeping training, for example, because that's what she wants to do, that's where the market is. Within that time, that woman is enrolled in that housekeeping program. The department then looks at how do we provide for her basic needs, school, as I say, school feeding, food just to cook for the day. The department has programs that we can look at areas like that. We would look at how do we partner with some of the schools to help us with the school feeding program as well. There are times that some of these women leave the home, they have no time to actually pick up physical thing, anything, clothes, anything. We have to look at how then do we supply them with school uniform for these children. Sometimes we have to transfer from one school to the other. So there are avenues for that within the department. The department also coordinates or works with other agencies involved to look at how do we fulfill needs that we aren't able to fulfill. But that component is there. When I talk about case management, that's what I'm talking about. So it's not just helping you to the court and leaving you, and that's why we've beefed up that part of our services, looking at what we call support services for these women, because we understand that it takes some time, and you wouldn't want someone to make that big step to say, I want to come out, and there's not the support system in place to help them. So there is
just want to add, because there, we recognize that the system is not perfect. Far from it. I mean, I think globally we don't have a perfect system. However, there are some gaps, and especially access to, for example, attorneys. That's a big
one of the
gap.
challenges as well.
For example, where I live, we don't have a practicing attorney. So whosoever you may get, if you get an attorney, have to travel to do your case. And the attorney will tell you, well, traveling fees alone, is so and so.
$25.
Right? And I don't even think they're $25. I don't think they're $25, but anyway.
Then they'll charge you for the time it takes to travel.
Yes,
Passes.
So people would practically tell you, well, Miss Michelle, I can't afford to have the attorney there. I can't. They might could seek legal advice, for example. Maybe they could go and say this is this and that and that. And for us as women's development officer, well, I am a bush liar. And so we are trained. We and we continue to be trained in the law. And sometimes we even have to advise attorneys, because some of them are not they operationalize the law every day, and so we kind of know the little nuances that you can go for. And sometimes they assist us also. So we have developed a network that sometimes we call attorneys, for example, and they would assist and say, well, you need to apply for this, because we might be so up as the legal terms and things like that. And so that happens, but there is still room for more. Because especially now, as we get more and more complex in relationships, and the way usually as it relates to common law relationship, legal issues of land, division of property, being able to prove what your contribution to that work is. There's where the complexities come in, no? So when it comes to the Domestic Violence Act, that's what we work with every day. But some of the other, like Supreme Court issues, and so
How many safe shelters do we have in the country? Is it still two?
Three.
One in Belize City, Haven House. One in Cayo. Is it Marla?
One in Cayo and one in Corozal.
Okay. So we have 3 safe houses, which are places where a victim runs with their family, and they will be housed, clothed, fed, and hidden for a period of time until they can get back on their feet. Is there any government supported safe house?
As in funding, we're talking about. Well, the department works with these safe houses. So how it works is, if there's a woman or a family placed within the safe houses, the department works along with them in terms of the same case management. So we're looking at care. There's a social worker that works with that house mother. I'm not sure what they call him. But to work with that person to see what the plan is to get that person out as well. There are, I think one of the shelters do receive a subvention.
Okay.
The other two are more private, but they have their own funding. But there is the instance where we work with them. So if it is that we have to provide, we have to assist them with payment for counseling services, the department does that, whereby the house, the actual shelter works with getting that person to their counseling session. So there's a collaboration in terms of working with the woman and what the plan is.
In your opinion,
just let me add
do
something
you
to
feel that we need more?
Okay, just let me add something to that. Also through the BA1 project that completed about 2 years ago, it was a project that was funded by SICA, Central American Initiative, really to look at violence. It was particular to look at violence against women and trafficking in persons, no? Because it goes hand in hand in terms of the stability of the region, what is passing through and things like that. And so that project also strengthened different areas, different places. As many of you know, that I also work with power.
Yeah.
And for example, we got a counseling room that we can do sessions. We can do sometimes mediation as it relates to couples and when because we have to think long term as well. So after the immediate threat would have passed, or if they're at a deadlock, sometimes it's not the type of violence that is so pervasive that you have to run away and hide, but it's ongoing. Yes, it's
curable.
ongoing, curable, something to deal with, issues of maybe communication, exactly, what will happen with the child, visitation, and those type of things, or to help you work out what are some of the nitty-gritty of separating or what would happen. And so many of the shelters and places were enhanced in terms of retrofitted and given materials and supplies by that project. And so those were some of the things that were done or continues to be available. So while there is not a shelter, for example, let's say in Stan Creek specifically, and the shelter is in Belize City, and a lot of times, so that's a big step for people. And we prefer to take our chances in our home than coming to Belize City. That's what many people feel. However, we do make safety plans. However, we can access hotels, we access rooms that people can go, in an immediate threat. And so we have that MOU, and we have that kind of.
Let me ask: is there a need for more, or?
Well, I'll tell you the truth.
Yeah.
I've been working on the ground now at the department for 16 years and community for like 25 years, and I may have placed 5 persons in a shelter. In a safe home. So I'm just saying, right? And so people tend to go to their family, for example, because I think you get a protection order. I think that while we have a few people that will not obey the law and just so have that violence and there are few. But I think basically people are able to use the legal system to manage. So I don't think we have to assess that, because you have to assess the numbers. How would you then?
Well, it could be too that people don't leave because they don't want to go to family. Family judges just as much as everybody else. And ladies, I'm not pressuring you in terms of what the contribution is. I know that the women's officers work very hard in encouraging women to leave the situation. I'm just trying to think of what the barriers may be. And I say that because we have an opportune time right now. We've had the shelters on talking about how challenging it is to raise funds. People like giving to kids, and because of the nature of the shelter, it has to be hidden. You can't know where it is, you can't know who's there, you can't know who's working there. So it's hard to get funds. And I'm just saying that in this time where everybody is, for now, so concerned about gender-based violence, the hashtags are great. The pictures on Facebook and Instagram are great, but we have to do more. And we can be able to support those shelters financially, with clothing, with uniform, with food, with bedding. Because then you're actually helping someone to get out of the situation. So that was the reason I asked. It's not because I know how you get called out of your beds in the middle of the night to try to help somebody, and you're doing what you can with the resources you have.
But that's the shelter is, you give a perfect practical solution, but there's also issues of, for example, legal support. You're right. We're talking a bit. So there are room. Definitely, we're doing a lot, but there's a lot more to be done. We just want to inform or let the population know that this service is available, that is connecting to other services, and that will try the utmost best to ensure you're safe, you feel safe, and you're able to make those decisions for yourself. And the point is too, Marlene, is for you to live a life free of violence. That is your right. GBV is a human rights issue, and we have to place it right there where it is.
I don't want us to miss this opportunity, because I feel very passionate about this. There's somebody out there watching us right now, and this is an opportunity for you to tell them at least one thing. What is their one thing to tell that person sitting on your couch right now? Something that would allow them to be able to move. What is something that they don't know that if you tell them right now, that would probably get them, probably save their lives, probably save their children's lives? What is that one thing
The one
that they
thing,
don't know? that
the
they need
one
to-
thing
that you can tell
is
them?
that help is available. Maybe you have tried before. The other thing we have to understand that the dynamics of GBV and domestic violence is that it takes a lot to leave.
Yeah.
So the other thing is that don't feel guilty that you tried and you came back.
Yeah.
But you try again. You owe it to yourself. If you have children, but you owe it to yourself first. If you have children, that will better protect them. But for yourself as a human being, it is your right to live a life free of violence. And at the Women's Department, the Women's and Family Services Department, there are services available throughout the country, from Corozal to Toledo. Now, if you find it challenging, for example, to even get on a bus or come, ask someone, could you give me a ride? You know, we will ensure that you are able to get back. We do.
What about the stigma and the shame, though?
Well, I was going to say that. What appeal do we make to the wider community? Because, as I said, when things get to a elevated point, we have sympathy. But the cycle is something that people don't understand.
Right.
That
Yep.
you yourself you need to be strong enough and
Right.
believe you can leave, and it takes a couple
Yeah.
tries.
And it takes a couple tries. It's like learning to ride a bicycle. Most people don't get on a bicycle and they learn to ride. You drop off,
Looking
you
for
get
two
back
times.
on. Yeah,
Bounce your head.
right, right. So I think we have to, that's the wider message to our community, that you know what, people try, they need to try and try again. And sometimes if we're strong enough in our support, one-on-one holding hands, we do that, but the wider community support to say, you know, you are trying, this is what you're doing, you know, continue, I am here for you, ensuring that we know that you are trying your best.
Can I
to
ask
do
this
that.
final meal question? I have to ask this
I
question.
have a meal. Can I ask my meal question
Sure,
first?
ladies first.
Because you won't forget yours.
Ooh, that's so much of a meal thing.
But
Ladies
let me
first.
say this. I said this on the show on Monday, and I was a bit comforted, at least last night, hearing from the head of the Coast Guard speaking about male-to-male
Yeah.
issues as well. And I think Isani was hosting that day, and I said, you know, what do you do when your male friend hanging out says, well, my woman not allowed for do that, and my woman not allowed for go there, and my woman wouldn't be crazy
Yeah.
if it tried that. What do we say to men who do not condone violence? This is not an all Belizean. I don't like generalizing all men are bad.
Yep.
But what do we say to men about their part in counseling their brothers, in being able to understand that limiting women, controlling women,
manipulating.
is simply not healthy in a relationship?
I think that's a room, that's, you open a wide question, because that's, in talking with other males, because we, you know, do network and talk to other, and even as a feminist, you know, people misunderstand that word, but that word is for equality.
Yeah.
And what do you say? But, you know, men have to talk to men, all right? And so I feel more comfortable working with women, even though I do work with men, because I could understand the human connection. But there's some particular things, especially as it relates to the way our culture, the way we're socialized as women, as girls, as boys, as men, that peer-to-peer, that particular peer-to-peer, and we know that peer-to-peer education is one of the most powerful education anyway. So while I might listen to Miss Michelle, you know, and but if a male of their age, their stature,
Men talk to men on a different frequency.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Different
so,
language too.
So that is a gap, Marlene. That is a
No, it
gap.
is,
That is a
it's-
need. And I think at least from where I sit, I know that we are willing and ready to support men who want to. I think
They have to be a part of the conversation.
yeah, they
And
have to
that's-
be
and
a
that's
part
a
of the
good-
conversation
Have
and
to be a
want
part
to.
of
I
the
think we have a
conversation.
brochure. We have 2 brochures. We have a domestic violence handbook for men that Adrian the Doc Martinez is on the cover,
Nice.
and we have another brochure that's
I hope it's online too.
speaks to men, but that needs to be strengthened. So those are just two tools that comes out of that.
And that's a good segue to my final question, which is two-pronged. One is that what does the department do proactively? In my experience, I had the experience of working with the BDF. I was at the BDF for a little while, and working with the family court for a while, where there's a high incidence of domestic violence. For example, and I'm not knocking it, it's just the math of it. You have a high incidence of domestic violence with certain factors. For example, police officers and BDF.
Population.
Those populations are, I mean, incredible. The number of clients that come in from. So what is being done proactively in those two areas? One, where there are high incidents. The second thing is, from a male standpoint, are there any mechanisms to siphon out false claims? Because there are certain persons who, for just the benefit of maybe they were caught cheating, or maybe they did something wrong, whatever reason, and they make an accusation that is false, and they use all, or maybe they're just broke, and they're saying, you know what, women's department, they give me free housing for a week, and I left anyway. So the first is, what proactively is the women's department doing and can do? And secondly, are there any mechanisms to filter out false claims?
Well, I know that Miss Anna will speak to what is now, but I know what happened in the past. I know what happened. That a lot of work was done, because I was a part of some of that work in terms of mobilizing men, in talking with men and working, in open up that space. There was the Carry Man movement and things like that. So some work was done. And like I spoke to the two brochures that were made, posters, different, communication material that was done out of that. And like, even us being here, sometimes the ebbs and flows of communication and about talking about these issues, sometimes we are up and sometimes we're just on the ground trying to grind out the practical day to day. So there may be a space for that conversation to continue. And I just a little bit in terms of false claim, maybe they just want free rent or something like you were saying, but we have not seen much of that. Because it's hard enough for people to come and report. There's a lot of, sometimes people hide, sometimes you have to meet people outside of the office, like at a park or at different places, for lunch or something, that you're just sitting there eating a meal, but that's what you're talking about. So it's not something that I have seen that people want, this kind of service or need that, because it's quite a invasive kind of service. So you will not open up yourself with that for 3 months rent or something like that. That's my experience. I don't know, maybe I don't know.
No, just to add, even the process looks at a formal assessment as well. So sitting down and really talking to the person, seeing what's happening and assessing the situation. And as I said, I can't remember even getting a false report since I've been there. Not to say that persons will do that. They will do that. Yeah. But I think the whole assessment process helps as well. And I really don't think, and I hope that this is my personal opinion, I don't think persons would come in just to talk about being abused. Just to, because as I say, there's a lot of connotation to that as well, coming out to saying that I'm in that situation. So
it's not impossible, but
it can just happen and has happened.
But the assessment would also be that something is also not right with the person. So there's also another level of,
there might not
there's
be
also another level of care
and there
that
might not
you would
be,
want to look why that person is doing this.
Exactly. And there might not be domestic violence, I say, but during that assessment you will find there are other needs within that family as well.
Malena's do part 2.
We gotta wrap it up. I mean, we have another segment coming up, but we really appreciate you coming in. And once again, what's the contact information for people who want to reach out and get that process started to leave a violent situation that they're facing at home?
Okay, I'll give us the cell number that I works with for the ministry. And I think Ms. Anna could give the different numbers. I'm not too good at remembering numbers, but my number. And if you text me, because I'm always talking
You're
to
not
somebody.
always, yeah.
I don't answer.
Yeah, text
But
messages
if
are
you
easy.
if you text me or message me, you can find me. You can message me on Facebook, Michelle Irving, and ask questions. And I would refer you, no matter what part of the country you are, I would refer you to where your area is, and that's IRVING. My number is 615-5204. That's my cell, and I also have another one, 622-8671. And if even with the NGO that I work with, Power, if you go on our Facebook page, you
It'll
will
help
see
too.
the ministry also has a Facebook.
P-O-W-E-R.
P-O-W-A, right? P-O-W-A.
Power.
Good question. There is, you can message that. You can message personal. I think the ministry also has a Facebook page, Ministry of Human Development and
Yes.
Social Transformation. So you can also message the Facebook page that could then put you in touch. I'm sure the administrators are
And
on
this is all
target.
confidential too. Your
Yes.
information,
Well,
people not find out.
One of the things that I have to say this, and you said one thing, confidentiality is what we breathe,
Awesome.
sleep, and live. Because sometimes that's why I say you don't even want to be at the office.
Yeah.
If you don't want to come to the office to make nobody see you coming up those stairs, if you're that afraid, if you message or we can meet you where you
And
feel
reach
more
out.
Nobody can judge your
comfortable.
leader.
The
Yeah.
point
Right.
is that there is help available, and that's what we
Yes.
wanted to discuss today. So thank you, ladies, for coming in. We really appreciate it, and we hope that the viewers who are watching, and if you're at home still contemplating whether or not now is the right time, just go ahead and
No,
reach
is
out.
it? No.
And you will find help on the other end of that message or that call, so please do. We're going to go ahead now and take a break, and when we come back, it's to introduce you to the new vegan and vegetarian menu at the Radisson, so stay tuned.
Get to eat.